Welcome to Tea
Hebrew
Brews and
interviews.
Views. This week, I am challenging Lovey to a data set that he's seeing for the first time. But before doing that, what tea are you drinking today?
I unfortunately do not have any tea, but I have my favorite version of coffee, which is microwave milk with instant coffee dumped into it. So,
Okay. So I guess we need to change the name to um, Data Views and Coffee Brews instead. We'll figure it out. Um,
what about you? What you got for
Yeah,
your tea then?
I'm drinking tea at least, so at least I'm true to our name. I'm drinking like a matcha hibiscus tea. It's
Matcha.
it's pretty it's pretty tasty. It's like a little fruity and caffeine, just the caffeine buzz I need.
Ah, nice. Is it green? Is it very green colored?
It's like reddish green.
All right.
But let's get to the sample set. Do you want to share your screen and talk about this sample set I
Yeah,
sent
let
you?
me share the data screen. Here we go. Okay. So this is the data set that we're using. It's a smartphone data set that we got from Kaggle. You download the CSV right here and you can pull it in. But basically, what it has is it has a bunch of brand names, different smartphones. Then, the specific model of that smartphone, the price in Indian rupees, the rating. I'm guessing the rating is on a scale of 100, so the higher the score, the better. And then a bunch of different variables in here that you might care about the smartphone, like the processor, the number of cores, the processor speed, and things of that nature. Um, but I
So
was gonna
do you know why I sent you this sample set?
no. Why'd you pick the sample set of all the ones you could have?
Come on, you know. Viewers, this guy still has a flip phone from I don't know the 1980s. So I'm really trying to get him to pick a new phone here.
But with the whole phone stuff, this is what one of my requirements is that it needs to have internal memory. One of the kind of nice things about this data set that you did send was there is a section in here that is there's internal memory, but there's also the ability to extendable memory available right here. One of the categorical variables that we have.
And so you're saying to convince you to buy a new phone, that's going to be one of the main requirements.
That's going to be one of the main requirements, but I mean, I still don't think it'll convince me. But we will check it out though. Let me let's see, pull up this data set real quick. So this is actually in the entire data set. The one I was just showing you right now is a subset. So the original data set has about 980 rows in it. And one of the things that will look kind of different in mine than most people's is the price initially is in Indian rupees. So I just converted this to dollars by just doing a simple formula where it was just the price divided by the conversion rate, which is about 83 ish.
Okay.
All right. So now that we got like the price in terms of dollars, now we can kind of like look at this data set and start doing some type of analysis. Now, one of the types of graphs I'm a big fan of, Clovis, that most people don't use that much are contingency plots. And for people that have never seen a contingency plot before, it looks something like this right here. So this is whenever you're doing a y categorical against an x categorical, you'll make what's a contingency plot. So in this case, what I have is I have all these different brand names on the x, and then I have extendable memory here on the y. So I can see from like the top counts, like this. I think this is Xiaomi has a good amount of phones with expandable memories. Same with Samsung. We can see Apple does not have any, so I'm crossing them off the list in terms
I'm
of.
a little disappointed because I am an Apple user, so I guess I will not be getting the blue bubbles from you.
No,
Uh,
you will no blue bubbles there. But here's the thing: is like this. A lot of the data in this data table is they have 4G phones and 5G phones, or maybe 3G phones as well. And so what we need to do now is like most of the carriers here are 5G. So I have one of the X's here as 5G, and then extendable memory as a Y. And what's nice about here is if I can just click on this box, if you look at this original data table that I have, I've selected 227 rows. So these are 227 rows of phones that have the expandable memory as well as being 5G as well. So what I can do now is just right click on this, and this is a really cool trick, is right click on selected and go to data view, and then it'll make a subset of that.
With just those 227 phones.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
just as it's still a lot of phones, we got to narrow this down. We got to find the right phone for you. What's the next stage here?
I guess the next stage, what I would do is, well, there's like we have these columns right here, the dollars, how much they cost, and what the rating is. So I bet we can probably use these two columns to make a another kind of graph. So let's go to Graph Builder, and I'll drop these into here, and I'll get rid of that smoother. Now I have dollars on the X, so let me just double click on that axis. I don't want to pay more than $500 for a phone, so let me just hit add on that. And now we have a reference line right there for 500. And
Okay,
also,
quite
I,
a still a good amount below 500. Yeah.
yeah, and you can see there's a lot of phones like this one right here is very expensive. And you can see like right now it says like row 75 or 785 and rating 89, but it doesn't show the brand and the actual phone. So what's helpful if you want to see that though is like over here in the main data table where I have brand and model. I'm just gonna kind of control click there, right click, and then go to label. And so now when I go back to here, if I highlight a point, I can see what phone that is. So this is
Lights, Leets,
never heard of that
phone.
brand before.
No, but it's expensive.
And the way it's three times my budget right there.
And it has a good rating, 89. Do you have like a minimum rating requirement?
Yeah, let's just say 85 is probably good enough. So probably just say not too good, not so bad. And so there's a good amount of phones right there. So what we can do now is I can either just like drag it this way, make a box, or I can use the lasso tool up here by this paintbrush area, and I can kind of draw a more specific shape if I wanted to do it this way. But if I do that, same thing, I highlight all those points, and I can go to select it again, right click and go to data view, and I have a new subset now.
The thing that's wild is I always forget about that lasso. Like I've seen it done a million times, I've done it a few times. But if you had asked me on the spot right now to draw a circle instead of a square, I would have blinked. It would have taken me like 2 minutes. So
Yeah,
thanks for showing me that again.
yeah, and the cool thing about that particular like that you can draw whatever shape you want. So if you want to like really be discriminant on what you're picking, you can do that with that lasso tool.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, so now we got that subset. Oops, I'm getting confused with all my subsets. If that ever happens, by the way, if you're like getting, you can just go to the jump. Uh, what is it called? The main homepage, and we can find it from there. But anyway, I have these 36 phones right here now, and so
Okay.
I can see these are all under $500. They all have pretty good ratings, and I can kind of see if there's anything else in here that might be helpful. In terms of like camera megapixels. There was a cool column that I did see on here. It was called IR Blaster. So I'm guessing these are phones that have the ability to like work as a TV remote. Like it has an IR blaster on there, and I can see they're all from this Xiaomi
Yeah,
brand.
they're all the same one. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna color those just red. So, but those probably are gonna be like the phones that I kind of maybe uh, want to kind of like look at right there. That's a terrible color. That's way too bold. Let's make it orange. That's better.
Nice, much better. Okay, okay. So we've narrowed it down to 4 phones or 5 phones, same brand. You just got to find them at your local cellular store.
Yeah,
Just think about it. I think we got to get rid of that flip phone.
maybe, but it does survive quite a bit, like in terms of dropping though. So that's the other kind of the benefit of it that these phones don't have. All right, but since I was this is kind of what I did with the data set. I'm curious, what did you end up doing with it though?
Yeah. So I leveraged some of the. I guess let me share my screen real fast. Uh, uh, okay. Let me know once it is up.
Yeah, it's up. I'm gonna put you on the big screen on here.
Perfect. So what I ended up doing was I looked at this sample set, and I saw, the brand name, the model, and I saw two main outputs, price and rating. And I was really interested in the rating. Let me group the outputs together. I'll call these my outputs. And then I'll highlight all the inputs here. We have a good variety of continuous as well as categorical. I'm going to go ahead and group those and call it my inputs. So if you look where my cursor is, 2 outputs, 22 inputs. That's a lot of knobs to tune in order to, let's say, increase or decrease that predicted rating. So I leveraged a platform here called the predictor screening platform, which allows me to put rating here as my main response and take all my 22 inputs here and add them as an X.
So basically, just kind of clarify. So it's like you have the response rating, and you want to see which one of your X's is the most influential in that rating?
Yeah, which of these inputs, which of these X's explain most of the variation in rating? Which ones have a much more negligible effects? I want to find my key predictors here. And what this predictor screening platform will do instantaneously is it's going to build a certain number of decision trees. I'm going to go with the default of 100. And it's going to average those results out. It's a random forest. So when I click OK here, it'll do a calculation. It might take a couple seconds. I'll get this neat table where it will have all my predictors here to the left, and then a ranking of contribution to the variation of rating. And right here, I have this column, the portion column, which will show me that that percentage of variation explained by a specific predictor.
Okay.
So if I'm looking just at RAM capacity, this is our biggest one here. I'm seeing about 39% explained by just RAM, according to this model.
So does that also mean like that for if you want a phone that has a high rating, like RAM capacity is going to be the most influential in determining the high rating?
And yes, the RAM, and if you look at resolution height is also a close second. They're not that far off. I'd say these are by far our 2 most important predictors. And then
because the RAM is probably like how fast the phone can do functions, and the resolution is probably how big the screen is.
Yeah, and how nice the image is and video quality and all that stuff. I would imagine.
So I think. You did it for rating though. Do you think it's the same predictors for price though?
That's a great question. Let me relaunch this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to relaunch this analysis, and this time I'm also going to add price here. So if I do that, again, it might take a couple seconds to do it. We could look at them side by side, and we could see if the rankings stack up. So if we look at it side by side here, you'll see, RAM capacity, which is number 1 for rating, is number 11 for price. Resolution height is 1 for price. So they're not, if you just look at these bars and the portion columns and the ranks, there is quite a bit of a difference between the 2. For example, 6 here for price is number 13, battery capacity.
What I was going to say is the processor speed, because price is the processor speed is the second highest predictor. So it's probably the brain of the phone is probably really contributing to the price then.
Yeah, definitely. That, and then it looks like the resolution height's up there as well. And again, this is a random forest. So if I were to repeat this analysis, redo this analysis enough times, there's always going to be slight variation, randomness in the results.
But you can. But what happens if you increase the number of trees? Does that help kind of average out things a bit better?
It could, but then also it could take longer to calculate. So there's always going to be a little bit of a trade-off between the 2.
So once you have this screening ability, though, what are you going to do with it though? So in terms of rating, you found out these things are the most influential. What can you do with it?
Yes. So, now that I know, the point here is for, let's say this were a DOE and I wanted to get future runs or future results, I wouldn't need to tune all 22 parameters here. I can just focus on less than a fifth here with just these top five. Because with these top five, if we look at rating and add these portions up, this is close to, 80% of the variation explained by just a fifth of the results. So I can choose to pick these top five, copy them here. And once I copy them, I can bring them into any model that we have in Jump or Jump Pro. I can do a linear regression model. I can go to some of the more modern machine learning techniques. Maybe I want to get the actual bootstrap forest and have some of the quantitative results and metrics. So I'll do that bootstrap here where I can just add those X factors I selected. So 5 factors here. I'll add rating as my Y. And for the sake of fun, I'm going to add a validation column. Right now it's telling me I didn't select a validation column, so I'm just going to create one from scratch. This will allow me to partition my data into 3 different sets if I want to. One of them will be training, which is used to initially create the model and obtain the parameter estimates. Validation would be used to assess the model and tune those parameter estimates to have higher predictive ability. And then test would be rows of data that are completely held out from the model making process to see how our model handles data it's seeing for the first time. I'm just going to stick with the default here of just having training and validation. 70% of my rows will be training, 30% will be validation. So I'll just add that here. Go ahead and click OK. I have a variety of different parameters that I can apply to the model. I can choose the number of trees in my forest, the minimum splits per tree, things like that. But I'm just going to stick with the default options here and click OK. And then, when I do this, it will create a model. And I'm going to have some overall statistics here of training and validation. As you can see, the R-square is the amount of variation explained by the model. For both the training and the validation, we're seeing about 90%. So really high values. And what I like to see here is not a large drop-off between validation and training. The values are stacking up pretty nicely. And then we also have this root average square error. And you see these are pretty low values. But, I'm a visual person. Love, I know you're a visual person. The thing I like to do, and I think that you like to do, is always add a little profiler. The profiler is like one of my favorite things here, where essentially you put all your inputs of interest on the x-axis with their current input settings in red. And on the y-axis, we'll have rating with its predicted value in red. And what you can do is you can move these crossbars around left and right for any of these variables. And that, as you change these values here, your, Jump will instantaneously update these predictions based off this new combination.
It seems like if you want to increase the rating on the phone, just make it super fast and have it a lot of memory and the biggest screen you can.
Yeah, and high resolution. No, but yeah, it's a pretty powerful technique. It allows you to visualize with any model, no matter how statistically complicated it may or may not be.
Oh, but on a separate note, Clovis, do you think this is like the reason why phones have gotten so big, like in the recent decade? Like, you remember like the old iPhone? It was like super small, pretty small.
Yeah, it's funny because I like it small. I like it very small. But I guess to be able to handle all of these at their optimal conditions, I guess right now we need those phones to be bigger.
Mm.
Is that what you're thinking?
Well, I mean, because I do remember like in the early 2000s, there was like a trend where phones were getting smaller and smaller. Like you had the old Motorola Razr, but then there was like a point like in the 20 teens where it's like the phones started getting bigger and bigger, and then you had like those notepad ones where like the stylus and everything, and so it was like eventually you need cargo pants to like hold the phone.
Yeah.
It's getting the size of like a small tablet.
Pretty much any pants I have now, the right pocket has been completely ruined. I just have the out phone outline. So I guess that's a pro of your flip phone.
This is
So
very tiny. This is very slim.
yeah. So in the end, what are you thinking? Do you think you're gonna stick with your phone, get a new phone? Um,
I think I'm gonna stick with this one so far. The it's not broken yet, so
okay, okay. Yeah, don't you have like one of those indestructible phones? Like you could run over it with a car and it won't break.
I haven't done that yet. But it's like I've thrown this all the time. It's like that Kyocera one. I don't think it was on the list because it's not on that one. But one of my favorite things about it is waterproof. So like when it gets like in the like dirt or mud, you can literally wash it with soap and water under the sink.
So yeah, I think that the data set we sent here was only smartphones. So
That's a good
that's
point.
probably why.
All right. Well,
Well, yeah,
so
go ahead.
I guess okay, next episode we have a special next episode where we're gonna have
A guest.
a guest, and they're gonna be challenged on a data set by us. So
Yes.
yeah, I
Um,
think we have someone picked out for that one for next time.
yeah, yeah. A great coworker of ours. His name is Peter Hirsch. Great guy, does lots of good jump blogs. So I'm excited to challenge him, and hopefully we'll stump him.
Yeah.
Hopefully he'll panic. We'll see.
All right.
Okay. Have a good one.
Like I said, have a good one, man.
Okay. Bye.